Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today I want to talk about something that has been hitting the headlines quite a lot recently, especially here in the UK, and that's the new EES system. Now, some of you may have heard of this, some of you may not, especially if you're further afield. This is something you need to be paying attention to no matter where you are outside of the EU. I know the UK, we think about it a lot more. It's hidden our headlines, but if you're further afield, this is still something you're coming across. So you probably want to know what exactly is going on. So the EES is the entry-exit system that's been put in place now for EU countries. So this is something that you'll have to be going into if you're hitting EU countries. Now, there are two that don't specifically have this. That's Cyprus and Ireland. They do not have the entry-exit system. They're the only two, I believe, currently that don't have it. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be having it in the future, so do remember that. But if you're coming in anywhere else, Spain, Italy, Portugal, the kind of places that especially British tourists are going to be hitting for summer, you probably want to know what exactly is going on. And now there have been a lot of headlines about things that have gone wrong and teething issues and things like this, people being stuck in queues. And of course, a lot of people are worrying because this was something that happened during Easter when it kind of went live. And of course, a lot of people are now worried because they have those summer holidays set up for, as I say, places like Portugal, Spain and Italy, and are worried that they're going to miss their planes, they're going to have a ruined holiday, or something else is going to go wrong. So let's hear about what exactly is it, what's going on, why is it here, everything in between. So let's get into it and see what exactly is the EES. So, as I say, the EES is the EU's entry-exit system. It's known as the EES. It's a new electronic border management system. It's here basically to replace physical stamps. So if you're like me and you quite enjoy getting your passport stamped, I'm afraid if you're coming into the EU, apart from those two countries I've mentioned, it's not going to happen. Those stamps are gone, which of course is good. It means you don't have to be filling up the passport too quickly, meaning you have to order a new one. You can last a little bit longer if you're going around Europe. So when you pass through passport control, there is no more stamping. It is just the EES. It registers all entries and exits to and from those participating European countries. This is meaning that your movements are recorded every single time you cross a Schengen border. It's a seismic shift, especially for British travellers in particular. So for decades, you have a quick flick of the passport and a thud, and that's it. That's all it took. That era is now over. That quick bang, you're done, go through is no longer here. The system is a digital record that keeps an ID on short stays of non-EU nationals. That's something to remember. It's non-EU nationals specifically. Both of those who need a visa and those who don't. So be aware, if you have a visa and you think, oh, well, I don't have to worry about this. This isn't something I need to think about because you're coming in for study or you're coming in because you've got a new job. This is still something that's going to be hitting you. Okay. Now, it is kind of looking at for short stays, but if you're coming in and out because you're traveling for family or whatever, it is something that's going to hit you. By collecting the personal data, basically travel document details and biometric information, it's all in one. It's specifically facial images and fingerprints. It's effectively replacing passport stamps altogether with just an individual digital file. Much as when you go into the US, you can sometimes be asked to get your fingerprints. That's the idea here. Now, there was something similar to this that was kind of being test run in some countries that I myself took part in last year. And it was pretty straightforward. A lot of people did have issue with it, but personally, I found it pretty straightforward, pretty easy. It wasn't really something that I had difficulty with. But of course, it depends on how good you are with technology as well. So think of it as the EU basically building a permanent digital record of every third country national crossing its borders. It's effectively a security thing that's been put in place. So the EES started last year. As I say, 12th of October 2025 is when it actually started. That's when it was introduced, but it's been coming forward in phases, and it's officially become fully operational as of the 10th of April, which is why people were having issues over Easter. It applies to those travelling on a short stay from what the EU calls a third country. That means anyone who isn't an EU citizen or a citizen of the Schengen area. This means it applies to the vast majority of people travelling from places like the UK. So who is it actually affecting? So, who's being caught up in all of this? Are you still able to quickly pop over to another country, not worrying about this, or not? Well, it's affecting quite a few people. In with those that it's affecting are people of all ages. They now have to go through the EES checks, but children under 12 won't need to provide fingerprints, though they will need to have facial scan taken. So if you're traveling as a family, everyone in that queue, from grandparents to toddlers, is going to have to be part of this new process. You can't do it as a family thinking, yep, family, go through. That's not how it's going to work. You have to do it individually. So Irish passport holders are exempt from EES. If you have a British passport but have EU residency, you're also exempt. It's worth noting that if you or someone in your group holds dual nationality, that you do have those exemptions. There is a particularly important detail for dual British and EU citizens. You're only exempt from EES and the soon-to-becoming ETIAS if you travel on your EU passport. Now, this is something that people kind of don't think about. I'm dual, I have both of them. But if you're using your British passport to travel, even though technically you're exempt because you're dual, doesn't matter. You're traveling on the wrong passport. So you have to be traveling on the EU passport. If you use your British passport, you will be treated as a non-EU national and you'll be subject to the full checks. This catches a lot of people out because you assume having the EU connection gives you a pass. It doesn't. It is entirely dependent on which document you're actually presenting. So Cyprus and Ireland are not part of Schengen area, so as I say, they won't need to be thought of in this way. As I said before, they aren't part of this. You don't have to register to the EES when you're traveling to either of those destinations. Similarly, popular emerging destinations like Montenegro and Albania are also outside the Schengen zone. So they're not subject to the EES as well. That is something to think about, actually. I didn't mention it earlier. I was only thinking of the two, but it is important to remember actually Montenegro and Albania, which, if you've seen my videos, I think are wonderful places. I really did enjoy my time in Albania and Montenegro. There's some wonderful, wonderful food there and some beautiful scenery. If you're in Tirana, for instance, and in Skanderbeg Square, the views of the mountains in the background, as well as Skanderbeg statue, they are fantastic. So if you're looking for somewhere to go and you're worried about EES, maybe pop over there. But yes, I didn't mention it earlier. I did say that I could only think of two, but no, that's not true. There are two more. Those Montenegro and Albania are outside Schengen zone as well, so they're not subject to it. This does matter if you're planning a trip, obviously, because if you're going to Dubrovnik via Split, Croatia is in Schengen, so EES applies there, even though it might feel like it's kind of similar to the Adriatic holiday. So do be aware of that. Okay, so how does it actually work? Because so many people have been talking about, well, do I do it here? Do I do it there? Or maybe I can kind of register online beforehand, because I have seen this. People are saying there's some way of getting around it by registering online. I hate to tell you, it's not the case. There are no real shortcuts. So when you travel to your first entry under the EES, biometric data will be collected and stored in an individual data file for you. So some countries may provide self-service kiosks, and this is kind of the trial run thing that I personally tried. That's something that I have come across. That's what I found quite easy. There are mobile apps as part of the process as well, and you can register your passport control officer as well with them. That'll be mandatory during that initial entry. So it's kind of how you're doing it. But again, avoid those things online. There's a lot of online things that kind of say you can avoid it by doing it here. No, okay. Registration by a passport control officer or those kiosks or whatever, that is what's going to be that initial entry that's needed. You can't skip a human officer on your first crossing, okay? That's the important thing. You've got those mobile apps, you've got that that kiosk. Those are for later. Those are the easy bits. The kiosk is so easy. It's a supplementary thing. It's not a replacement. At least to begin with. So it's basically you're going to be going to kiosk and then you're going to be seeing someone. Mobile app and then you'll be seeing someone. That's what I mean by you can't just go, oh, I'm going to do this online and then it's easy. It's not. There is a person involved every time. Now, later on, you may just need to go to a kiosk, similar to what you do now. So later on, that could just be, and it probably will just be that. That's simple. Kiosk done. Right now, you can't avoid the person. So once you've fully registered, you won't need to do full check every time. As long as you travel within 3 years of that first registration and your passport is the same and hasn't been renewed or something. So if you've got a passport that's coming up for renewal, you might have some issues, but if you're within it, you should be okay. However, it is likely that you will still need to join the same queue. That same queue as everyone else in order to use the EES terminal to document your entry or exit. So even on your second, third, fourth trip, you are not bypassing the queue. You're just spending less time at the front of it. Now, this is something that people keep getting wrong. Now, a lot of the issues that are happening now are kind of because it's their first entry, so it's slowing it down because people at the front haven't done it, and that's what feels like that. However, a lot of people have been mentioning this idea that, yeah, you don't go in that queue anymore. Yes, you do. In the same queue as everyone else. It's just that it moves differently. If you have everyone that's already registered, that's going through. So now the mobile app is called Travel to Europe. This is one I mentioned earlier, but again, you don't avoid things. It is available to pre-register your personal data before the arrival. This is the Frontex app, and it's well worth downloading. But again, don't think that you are skipping things. This is such an important thing to say. As I said before, you can't just do something before online and not have to do it. You still got that person that you're interacting with. So getting your data in ahead of time does reduce what needs to happen at the border itself, which, you know, if you've been seeing certain things, every second can count for a lot of people. It shaves things off. But with everyone kind of registering the first time and this slow process, it's not going to save you masses of time, and you still need to have that first check with a person. Now, of course, everyone does know, because I'm sure this is the reason you've kind of come to this video, because everyone has heard about, especially those in the UK, have heard about what happened in Milan. Now, Milan was not exactly great press for the EES system. It has meant that certain airports have basically been able to suspend the EES system, which they're allowed to do. Basically, for 6 hours, some airports have been suspending. This is allowed, I think, for the next 6 months. So they go like 6 hours, usually during their busiest parts. They just go, nope, we're not doing that right now because it's going to cause us a nightmare. So actually, a lot of people will probably be able to miss it for their summer holidays, because I do suspect that places like Portugal, Spain and Italy, as you mentioned earlier, which are the more popular, probably will skip this. Portugal already has done this with some of their airports. They'll do 6 hours and skip it. However, obviously those that have, really wanted to get the system running properly and not skipping it, you will come across these teething issues at the beginning, and that's what happened in Milan. The problem is Milan just showed probably the extreme of what can happen. There have been plenty of stories where people have just gone straight through. It's been fine. It's been relatively quick. It all depends on how many people are there, how prepared that airport specifically is. And that's the thing. It's kind of an individual airport, individual country thing right now. Everyone's got to get into the groove of it. But of course, Milan was a story and a warning for a lot of the countries that are doing it. Obviously, the story, it kind of exploded everywhere, across all the travel press. And it does illustrate what can go wrong. This was just, people weren't prepared. So what exactly happened? If those of you didn't see the news, didn't come across it, basically one of the most severe kind of instances of the travel disruption that we've seen, at least so far in 2026, well, it was an EasyJet flight. And it was bound from Manchester from Milan Linate Airport. This is why it's been in the UK news. That's what I said at the beginning, something that everybody's probably going to be interested in, but the UK has definitely been hit by this. It was forced to take off with 122 empty seats. So only 34 passengers managed to actually clear passport control in time to board. And that's despite a lot of people having arrived more than 3 hours before their scheduled departure. So, I am someone that tends to get to the airport incredibly early. So 3, 4, 5 plus hours is when I get to the airport. That comes a lot from the fact that I travel at weird times to get better prices. Again, if anyone's seen those videos, go back on my channel, you'll see I don't travel at normal times. That also probably helps because the queues aren't as big if you're traveling at 4 o'clock in the morning. But I tend to be there very, very early. But the situation in Milan suggests that that's not necessarily going to save you depending on where you're traveling from. So let that sink in exactly. 122 people, 3-hour head start, and they still missed the flight. Now, I'm sure it was absolutely lovely for the 34 people on board. They had lots of room, but not great for the 122 that missed it. So Max Hume was a 56-year-old passenger from Leeds, said that the system at the airport relied on only 2 officers and 1 biometric machine to handle the entire queue. And here you go. This is the individual issue. If an airport, a country is more prepared for it, they have a lot of the machines, they have a lot of extra staff in, this issue is less likely to happen. Max describes the process as going at a snail's pace. 2 officers and 1 machine for a sold-out flight of 156 people. It's not a freak system crash, it's just a structural failure. It's not enough equipment, not enough staff, processing technology that simply couldn't keep pace with the volume of passengers. So by the time Max's family cleared passport control, the plane had already departed after baggage belonging to absent passengers was removed. After missing the flight, EasyJet initially offered the family a paid rescue transfer of £110 per person for a flight departing 5 days later. But they were unable to wait, so the family searched for alternatives and ended up booking a route via Luxembourg, flying from Milan to Luxembourg, staying overnight in a hotel, and then taking another flight to Manchester the next morning at an unexpected cost of £1,600. That is not something you're going to be hearing if you're just going to be going away for a short break this summer, especially not something that you'd have expected with cheap flights into Europe as well. So flight EJU 5420 was operated by an Airbus A319 with 156 economy seats, all of which had been sold. The load factor on departure was just 21.8% This is compared to EasyJet's usual, this is the typical average as of last quarter from last year, 92.4%. That is a huge difference. And we can pretty much say this wasn't EasyJet. Some people may have been blaming EasyJet, and I know the £110, for 5 days later, it feels like you want to blame EasyJet because that's the usual go-to. This really wasn't them. It's not something that EasyJet has real control over. And actually, they'd already delayed the flight by, I believe, about an hour as they were getting the other stuff off. At some point, you're under the control of the airport that you're at, under their flight control and everything like that. So if we put it in terms for their typical departure, that's an almost completely empty aircraft taking off from a gate where more than 100 ticketed passengers were still standing in the queue. Because it took off. Max Hume, that was interviewed, yes, he had got through passport control, sorry. Not everyone had. There was still a queue going on. So EasyJet did speak out about this. There was a spokesman that told Lad Bible, we held flight EJU 5420 from Milan to Manchester for nearly an hour. So as I say, they did hold it for about an hour beforehand. This was to give passengers that extra time, but it had to depart. Crew reached their safety regulated operating hours. This is just the biggest issue. EasyJet can't really be blamed. Customers who missed the flight have been offered free flight transfer, and they are continuing to urge border authorities to ensure they make full and effective use of the permitted flexibilities for as long as is needed. And this is what I was talking about earlier, this 6 hour kind of delay that can be done at heightened times. It is something that they're looking at. And the spokesman said that they want this to happen so they can avoid these unacceptable border delays for their customers. Now, the airline, to their credit, was direct about where the blame lay. They weren't, taking the blame for this. No, you can't really blame them for wanting to immediately put this out there. This wasn't a gate change or a booking error. This was a border processing collapse. Witnesses of this described a scene of total collapse within this terminal. The air conditioning failed. It wasn't cooling the mountain of crowds, and several travellers actually suffered from heat exhaustion. We're talking about passengers queuing in genuine physical distress in a major European airport in 2026 because of a border system introduced by one of the world's largest political unions. It's just not sufficiently staffed or equipped on a routine Sunday. Now, again, for me personally, I think this lies with the airport and with the country putting it in. We can't really, I don't think personally, blame the EU for this. Because when you know it's coming, you've been told, you voted on it, you can't just go, oh, well, the EU's told us to do this, so it's their fault. It's not. It's not the airline, so it's not EasyJet, it's not the EU. It's, if you're only going to put 2 staff on and have 1 machine, what did you expect to happen? Now, personally, I've had issues in certain airports. I didn't find Milan's airport that bad. I actually quite liked Milan's airport, but there are several airports in Italy I have found to be lacking before. Obviously not the worst. The worst airport I've ever come across is in the US. I'm sure plenty of you can guess before I say it's Atlanta. But this is something that really the airports need to get sorted. And it is something that hopefully these stories are going to make them do. They're going to make them realise, hey, get your acts together. Now, we should say this isn't isolated. It's not just Milan this has happened, but Milan was the extreme. The kind of what happens when we don't do our work. That's what happens. But it isn't completely isolated. Not just Milan have had these issues. It should be mentioned, though, that although it's not Milan that have just had these issues, other places that have include places like Venice and Pisa. Now, there is an obvious thing to point out there that maybe the country wasn't ready. This is something that I think specific governments, specific airports haven't got themselves ready for, and it's sad to see, because a lot of the blame is going to come down on the EU, a lot of the blame is going to come down on the airlines, but actually countries knew this was coming, countries voted on this, and then when it's collapsing, it needs to be taken seriously. Now, this also happened in Faro, so I'm not just blaming Italy, I love Italy, but it is, I have had a lot of worse experience in airports, and just how badly things can go in them, and how poorly they're run, have been Italy. My worst two, which I may make a video on at some point, my worst two airports were the US with Atlanta, and in Italy as well. And I think Italy also have 3, 4 and 5 on that list. So, but Faro, wonderful airport as well, was in Faro January last year. And so, you know, it's not necessarily just bad staffing or something. Like, I do want to make that point. I don't want to just throw it on that, but it should be something that is kind of easily fixed by having the right staffing, having the right attitudes, and getting it done. And now Faro was brilliant. I really enjoyed Faro. The airport was very well run, but obviously they did not prepare for this. I don't know why, but they clearly weren't ready. So, I mean, processing times have increased by 70% in some locations. And that's according to the Airports Council International. That's due to these added steps that are involved with biometric data collection. Now, again, there's 70% increase, but if you don't have the staffing properly, then of course it's going to be. Now, we haven't had the full stories from everywhere. But the biggest story of the biggest collapse is one machine and 2 people. My worst experiences, as I've just mentioned, have been because of understaffing. Atlanta had 1 security officer to get me onto my next flight at Christmas time. These are things that seem, personally, quite easy to fix, but they are things that we need to prepare ourselves for, because we're still going through these. This is something we need to be ready for. Now, as I say, Portugal has suspended the system entirely at Lisbon Airport. They did this in December after those kind of delays. So this has been something they've been preparing for, being ready for. They had already suspended it. And in January, 24 officers from the National Republican Guard were stationed in the airport to ease the pressure. It's almost like Portugal realised what was going on, and this is my point. You know, initially, clearly they didn't have they weren't ready. That's why they suspended it, and maybe they're still having issues in Faro. But at least in Lisbon, they knew things were going. So let's do something to ease the pressure. We know we're going to have a big increase, so let's do that. And there have been reports specifically from Portugal that they are still doing those 6-hour blocks where they aren't having to do the EES beforehand, just to ease it in the busier times. So they are clearly taking it step by step. They are phasing it into their airports differently. So Faro clearly had an issue, but that seems to be an outlier from somewhere like Portugal. So, you know, Portugal is one of Britain's certainly's most popular holiday destinations. It effectively had to admit that the system was being problematic, and you know, they pulled it when they needed to from the busier hubs, and they changed it up. So this is something that can be dealt with. Obviously, we're going to have these teething issues, even if everyone did it perfectly. And I want to make this point because I feel like maybe I'm being a little bit harsh to Italian airports, and I'm not being harsh enough to Atlanta in America, just to put that out there. But even if the system, you know, everyone was ready for the system, there's going to be teething issues. So let's put that out there. Even if everyone had got everything ready, it likely was going to cause issues, at least at the beginning, because we're going to get initiated. Anything when you get it initiated causes problems, no matter what it is, no matter what it is. You know, the way that your bins are collected, if anyone remembers back, especially in the UK, how we changed it up to not just be one bin system, it's, you know, every other week, things like that. Oh, the calls, oh, the issues. There are always problems no matter what. It's something that, you know, you need to be ready for. Now, there was an unannounced European Commission review at Lisbon Airport in December last year, and it found what it described as serious deficiencies in border security control that prompted that kind of suspension and being ready for it. So Portugal dealt with it. And I think that's what it is. You've got to be on top of things. Portugal were. The airport was. They suspended when they needed to. They got people in when they needed to. They've given themselves those 6 hours when they needed to. And that, I think, has got to be a real big kind of green flag for Portugal. They've had delays. I'm sure they're going to have delays again. But of every country actually I've heard about for having this, they are the one that seems to be the most proactive against the issues that they're having. And I want to put that out there. I think that is something that should be praised, basically. Following the rollouts fully on the 10th of April, Portugal suspended that data collection again at Lisbon, at Porto, and at Faro. That was to make sure that they can ease this through again. So the Portuguese authorities have stated the suspension was designed to prevent passengers from missing flights because they know this has been happening, and so they're doing this more in the kind of down times. They're putting the EES back in place when it's really busy. That 6 hour block they're allowed to do it for the next few months. It's not, this isn't permanent that you can keep doing this, but for that block they can just suspend it, and they're doing it. They're working in properly. Now, Gran Canaria also experienced system crashes during the rollout, which isn't the best thing. And the joint statement from ACI Europe, Airlines for Europe, and IATA in February describes a complete disconnect between the confidence of the system, which everyone thought was going to be confident of their new system, and the conditions actually being experienced. They pointed to, unsurprisingly, understaffing, technical failures, and the low uptake of the pre-registration. And the pre-registration, again, you still have to have the right amount of people. So I think that, personally, I know this was a full review and everything, but if you're making a statement on this, you pretty should got to think about it, because even if everyone are pre-registered, if you have understaffing, doesn't help, does it? So, the understaffing is the obvious one that they came across. And it is something that people are just going to have to think about. The airports are going to have to put in place properly. Okay, so let's get off the doom and gloom. So I've told you about this. Like I say, the first thing to think about is, for next few months, it's 90 days. So next 3 months, airports are allowed to suspend it. I believe it's for up to 6 hours, and they can suspend it. So your summer holidays may not be affected depending on what time of day you're going, because they're allowing the suspension. So a lot of airports, like in Portugal, which have definitely been doing it, and a lot of other kind of heavy tourist destinations, may well be suspending the EES registration need when you're coming in. So you may just go through a lot easier, and the Milan situation may not be happening again, specifically probably in Milan, but likely won't be happening through summer. I think having this happen at Easter time, not entirely sure whether that was on purpose. It may have been, because it gives an immediate idea of what's going on. Like Easter, so there's holidays, let's see. Oh, there's issues. It gives them a quick, is this working? So that is something to think about. That there are these things in place. There are these suspensions of the system that are going to be going through the summer holidays. So it's not all doom and gloom. It may seem it. Every headline is telling you it. Oh my God, we're going to be going in. This is happening. This is happening. Hell, even I've just said about things where they're different statements are coming out, but it is not all doom and gloom. You've got things like that, and there's much more to be kind of more positive about as well. Your holiday is still worth taking. There are several reasons why it's, the right preparation is always going to help you. Once you've done your first EES registration, the process is considerably faster every time you return. And that's more and more from everybody else as well. You're still going to be in that queue, but there's less time at the end, and there's less time at the end from everyone else. Your biometric data will already exist in the system, so the bottleneck is less likely to happen. These first initial registrations of everyone that's coming at the same time, Oh, this is the problem. 100% of people need to do it. Next time, 90% of people. Next time, 80, 70, 60, and it becomes easier and easier. So every time you go back, it's going to get easier because more and more people are going to do it. And the summer holidays, there may be some chaos. There may be. I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of suspensions of the system, but depending on the amount of times it happens, it's going to make going into later this year and next year so much easier. And the chaos you're seeing right now is the kind of very first weeks of the full operation. You know, places haven't got ready. Some of the airports that maybe should have thought about it haven't. They're not ready. They haven't prepared. They've immediately been shown what the system's done to them. So there likely will be changes. This is just the teething. This is the start of it. Every major technology rollout in history has had a rocky launch period. Online banking, e-gates at UK airports, the NHS app, all of them were chaotic early on, and all of them settled. It's really easy now to go through the UK airport gates. The e-gates, great. NHS app, just reinstalled it myself because I'm changing doctor. So simple. Here's my email. That's my name. Get me in. So simple. Online banking is something that a lot of people don't even think they could live without anymore. So this is something to think about. They're all chaotic at first. The system will improve. The airports will hire more staff. Please, airports, hire more staff. I think that's the big one. The kiosks will get debugged, and there'll be more of them as well. And the processes will become more familiar to people, to officers as well, you know, because when you've only got two people, they may know the system. That's when it's going to go wrong. And of course, travellers will know what's going on. This won't feel like this in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time. You know, this isn't going to be something that continues to be a problem. It's also worth noting that once the initial enrolment hump is cleared across the travelling population, the EES should, in theory, make European travel more secure and ultimately faster. Okay, the end destination is a contactless, near instant border crossing. That's basically what's going to be happening, because if you're, you know, a bit at the other end, that bottleneck, that bit where people's stuff is being taken, well, if people have already had that done, then the queue just moves through because there's no longer any stamp. You just go through, done, bang, 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 bang. It becomes so much easier. And like I said, it's going to be, you know, ultimately safer as well, because this is a security thing for a lot of countries. So we're just very much not there yet. That's all. So on top of not giving you any more doom and gloom, what can you actually do about it? You know, I've told you, oh, Milan happened. This is what this is, and this is what this is, and this is what's not. But what are you actually going to do? You know, what's practical advice for you? So there are things you can do to get ready, be prepared, and make sure that your holidays go off without too much of a glitch. So first things first, and I know it's an obvious one, get there a little bit earlier. Now, obviously, people in Milan did get there earlier and there was still an issue, but as I say, this is now known. People, you know, airports know this. So just get there a bit earlier. You know, a few people have already been registered now, but if you get there a little bit earlier, it's really going to help. Add more time on top of what you're thinking. You know, if you're usually someone that goes, oh, I get there an hour beforehand. Firstly, I think, what? But, you know, add a couple of hours. If you're someone that is usually there, like me, early, you may be all right. If you're someone like me who gets there several hours early, you're probably all right. But make sure you do get there, you know, with a decent amount of time. You know, major hubs like Paris and Malaga are recommending now that you arrive 4 hours before departures. Now, I have to say, I've always arrived 4 hours plus ahead of departure. That may be because I didn't travel as much until after 9/11. And so it was always in my head that there's extra security. So it may be that it's a generational thing and older people maybe don't arrive as early because of it. I'm not sure. But I think, you know, the old 2 hour rule is dead, at least for now. You know, a couple of years' time, it'd probably be get there half an hour early, it'd be fine. But right now, you know, treat your airport arrival like a flight connection. Build in some slack, and then hopefully you won't need it. If you're there 4 hours early and you get through in half an hour, chill out with a coffee. It's not going to be the ruin of your holiday. The other thing, download the Travel to Europe app before you leave. So this is the official EU application. Do not be fooled by the imposters, of which there are many that all want to take money from you. Don't do it. The official Travel to Europe app before you leave. This allows third country travellers to pre-register. Now, again, this isn't solving anything in terms of, that's it now. You still have to go through and see a person, but doesn't mean you can get a lot of stuff done. So your passport data, you submit your biometric photos up to 72 hours before your your arrival in Europe. So, if you're planning on your flight is on Friday, get it 2-3 days beforehand, get everything uploaded, and it will help. It's not going to solve everything. And if you're in that queue and other people haven't done it, it's not going to be, it's not going to solve anything. It's not going to be the silver bullet, but it is something to help you. It is an extra little thing, little survival guide thing that you can do, and it will shave 2 or 3 minutes off your individual process. So, depending on how many people see this, if we can get this seen by a few million, it's never going to happen, but I can hope. Send this to people send it to people that are traveling, send this to people that are set in their ways that are traveling. If they can put it in and get those 2 or 3 minutes, if you get it up to 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, entire aircraft, entire airport full of people, this will be real quick. But you still will have to see that person, that passport officer, the first time you do it still. But it is important to get that done, because if this process time kind of goes down bit by bit across a queue of hundreds, that's a big change. Also, don't rely on airport Wi-Fi. Picture this. You're stuck in a 3-4 hour queue. 3-hour queue. You realise you need the app, and you try to connect to the airport's free Wi-Fi. Now, I don't know about you, but I have issue connecting to it full stop. Oftentimes find it not working at all, even though it says it is. So, you don't want to rely on it anyway. But if you're doing this only to find that thousands of other stranded passengers have already crashed the network, it's not really much good, is it? So sort your data situation before you fly. eSIM loaded with a European data plan costs next to nothing, and it removes any particular source of misery entirely. Then midweek travel is always going to be your friend. Now, if you've been watching this for a while, you'll probably go, yes, we know, we heard you last time, but I'm going to say it again. Midweek. Okay, midweek is always better. Tuesdays are my favourite, but there are industry experts. I'm not going to call myself an expert. I'm just a traveller, but experts do point that Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the golden window that is going to be coming up for queues right now. So get the cheaper flights on a Tuesday anyway. That's when you go. Tuesday and Wednesday are the cheaper flights. And now there's less of a queue. Why have people not been listening to me all along? So this is something you want to do. Saturday and Sunday crossing, carrying the heaviest traffic right now, unsurprisingly. So midweek is your friend if you can. Now, I realise this isn't, possible for everyone. But if you can, it's going to be your friend, especially if it's coming up for summer holidays. If your booking has any flexibility at all, even shifting by a day, from Sunday to Monday, it could be a significant difference in your experience this summer. Now, another thing is knowing your compensation rights and the gap in them, because this really matters. Airlines are not legally obligated to compensate passengers for missed flights caused by border processing delays. Remember that. If, as I say earlier, it's not the EU's fault and it's not the airline's fault, then why would they give you any money for it? EasyJet's position, for instance, in Milan incident was that this was outside their control. A border authority issue they had nothing but no control over. In fact, they went out of their way to help passengers on that extra hour. So legally, that's an argument that holds water. So Be aware of that. Don't go just going, oh, well, this is another thing from Ryanair, this is another thing from EasyJet or whoever it is. It's not them. They're not doing it. Oftentimes they're trying to help. A standard flight delay compensation rules under EC 261 apply to airline caused delays, not government border queues. Remember that. Your protection here comes from compensation travel insurance. Okay? So travel insurance. I'm not saying I am someone that doesn't necessarily use travel insurance so much. It depends. If your flight is only costing you £7 and travel insurance is going to cost you £100, but it's something to think about. If you're worried about anything like this, if you're, it's a full holiday with family, you're going for a week and you're already spending thousands, maybe getting some travel insurance is not the worst idea. And it's something that's going to actually protect you. Comprehensive travel insurance with a delayed departure, not from the airline, is something that can actually help. So check your policy now. Before you travel, make sure that border delay is covered. If you're looking for travel insurance specifically this summer, that's something you're going to be looking at. Also, have everything accessible, not buried. The amount of times I am in a queue just for security and I see people suddenly go, oh, I've got to take my laptop out. Oh, I've got to dig down into the middle of my bag because there's a bottle of water. People, a lot of rules have been here for so long. It is not the most difficult thing in the world. So get it ready. Passport, accommodation address, return flight details, all of it should be instantly to hand when you reach the border. The introduction of EES means border officers are more likely than before to ask detailed questions about your stay. So have your hotel address, your check-in dates, and your return travel details already. Should be difficult. I've had this before. I've had questions before. Not every time, but I have. I remember specifically going to the Netherlands and being asked specifically, where are you staying, how long for, what's the visit type, all these kind of things. It's not out of the realms of possibility that's already been asked to you, but it's just more likely now. So just be ready for it. This is not the moment to be rooting around in your bag. Just be prepared. It's something so simple, but can save you so much mucking around. And then if you have dual British EU citizenship, as I said earlier, but I'm going to reiterate here, use your EU passport. It's simple, but it's so often overlooked. You are only exempt from EES if you travel on your EU passport. If you present a British passport, you are treated as a non-EU national, regardless of any other entitlement. Doesn't matter. You arguing at the border, well, actually, I've got you. Don't care. Doesn't matter. You give them a British passport, that's how you're going to be treated. Now, there is one more thing to think about. Now, it's not for right now. It's not right now, but it is going to be coming up. As well as EES, there is, at some point, the introduction of the ETIAS. That's going to be later this year. So that is another thing. Now, it's similar basically to the ESTA, that if you're traveling to the US, it's non-visa individuals that are from countries that have kind of normal relationships with the countries, and it is coming in later this year. Basically, what it is the EU is introducing the ETIAS, and it's the pre-travel authorization. As I say, it's very similar to the American ESTA, and it's going to cost €20 per person. That lasts 3 years. So there's a lot of horror stories around this that I've heard so often, as with most things in travel, of, oh, well, we're being charged this, well, I won't go there, no, this is how much, and this is going to have to be done every time. No, it's once for 3 years. €20, so less than £20. It lasts for 3 years. If you travel as much as I do, or many of you will do, hell, even if you only travel once a year to Europe, to mainland Europe, let's say you travel once a year over there, that is an extra £6.66. That's it. That's it. So, this is just something that's added on, same as ESTA. It's applying to the visa exempt nations, as I say. So it's specifically for those that don't have visas. So if you have a visa, it's kind of not for you, but it's people like, British passport holders that are visiting any of the 30 European countries that participate. It's not live yet, and you don't need it for your summer holiday, but it will be going live later this year. And when it does, just be vigilant. There are already more than 60 fake websites that pretended to sell this. So be very vigilant, okay? Any site charging you for an ETIAS right now is a scam. Any site charging you right now is a scam. The only legitimate place to apply when the time does come is the official EU travel website, okay? The official EU travel website is the only place you can get this from. So don't get scammed. Don't get scammed and then blame somebody else later. It isn't live yet. It's not charging you. It's €20 from the official EU travel website. And it's just something simple. It's the ETIAS, same as the ESTA for the US. Don't even really think about it. It's an extra £6 a year, even if you travel once. I mean, if you travel as much as me, it's like an extra £1 on every travel. It's not that bad. So the thing to think is mainland Europe is not closed, okay? Your holidays aren't cancelled and the sun is absolutely still shining over the Algarve. The Amalfi Coast and the Spanish islands are still bathed in golden sunshine, okay? But the rules of the game have changed a little bit. And the players, the airports, the airlines and the border authorities have not yet caught up with the pace. You're going in informed now. You're going prepared. And with enough buffer time, it's the single biggest thing that's going to separate you and a smooth departure from a nightmare one. Do that, be absolutely fine. So just get yourself ready. Get these little things ready. Be prepared. And it's going to be easy, okay? Don't go in just thinking, oh yeah, I'm just going to be over there, done. It's not like that right now. Now, something to remember as well is it's not always going to be this, okay? It's a little bit more difficult at the moment because the systems have been put in place, but that's it. You're still going to, in the future, be able to nip over for the weekend, come back, no problem. It will go back to that. And actually, I think you're probably going to be able to do that even with the EES. It's just going to give you an extra hour or so. You're still going to nip over to the mainland to see some friends and come back, okay? It's not the end of the world. You just need to be prepared. You just need to be ready. And make sure you're traveling the right days and all these kind of things. It's not a lot is changing, but it feels like hell right now. And with all the news broadcasts, what do you expect? It's just something to be aware of. And as I say, the ETIAS is something for you to think about later on, but it is not the end of the world, okay? I want to put to bed these, end of the world stories that they come up so often. The EES and the ETIAS don't make it hellish to go to Europe. Oh no, I won't want to go there anymore. Oh, it's the end of it. No, okay? At the moment, you spend another couple of hours in a queue and maybe you travel at a different time. And it'll get easier later. And then later this year, you get a thing that lasts for 3 years and it's an extra few quid, couple of quid on top of a normal travel. That's it. It's not like you're being charged hundreds every time you want to go into another country. It's not like you're being kept at strict borders that you're not allowed to go past 10 hours. It's not happening. The news needs to punch so that people listen. Think about that. Travel is still open. Europe is still ready for you. Okay, now that's not to say you don't go further afield. Hell, like I said earlier, Montenegro, Albania, Ireland, Cyprus are all still ready for you as well. If you really think, I just want it easier, can't be bothered right now, I'll do the EES and everything later, go to them. You'll have a great time as well. Or maybe pop over to Africa. Wonderful places to see there. These things still exist. But just be ready and don't think that everything's ruined. It's not. So, I hope that helps. I hope that brings a bit more humanity to the whole situation that's happening at the moment. I didn't want to kind of comment during Easter because things were still developing and things have died down now. I've got to check on things and understand it a bit better from my own perspectives and the amount I travel, and it's not the end of the world, okay? But I hope it's helped. I hope people have taken something from this video and that you're going to be able to have an amazing summer holiday. Maybe a few extra little getaways and some travel in between as well. If you're someone like me that's constantly traveling, this is not going to be the end of the world, and you're probably ready for a few extra hours anyway. So, I hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you again next time. Thanks, everyone.